A massage chair might seem a bit extravagant, especially these days. 8 different settings, adjustable intensity, plus it's heated, and it just feels so good. Yes, a massage chair might seem a bit extravagant, but when it can come with a car, suddenly it seems quite practical. The all-new 2025 Volkswagen Tiguan, packed with premium features like available massaging front seats, it only feels extravagant.
This episode is brought to you by Netflix. Becoming the most valuable sports franchise in the world doesn't happen without risk. A man who's willing to bet it all, and the players ready to make their own luck. America's Team, The Gambler and His Cowboys, is the story of the 1990s Dallas Cowboys and Jerry Jones's impact on NFL history. Featuring interviews with iconic 90s players and more. Watch America's Team, The Gambler and His Cowboys, streaming now only on Netflix.
Welcome into 49ers Access. My name is Sterling Bennett, and today we are going to react and recap the San Francisco announcing their final 53-man roster for the 2025 season. Going to cover all of the surprising cuts, the surprising keeps, even some shocking moves I believe San Francisco could make in the upcoming days, and some potential waiver wire claims I think San Francisco needs to make before tomorrow's practice. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and let's react to the San Francisco 49ers 2025 53-man roster. And I want to start off by saying this. When you hear that phrase, the 53-man roster, it is worth noting that this is not going to be the final roster construction of the San Francisco 49ers. In fact, they're probably going to change the roster tomorrow, whether it be via the practice squad or placing guys on injured reserve. And I think the best place to start with this is saying congratulations to every single person that made the roster, and to those that didn't make the roster, that your journey in the NFL isn't over just yet. I know it sounds bad when you go from 90 guys on a roster and you cut, 47 of them to get to 53 across the entire league, 32 teams, cutting 47 players. It's a lot of guys now out there on the open market. Some guys injured, some guys released, some guys waived. It is a very great day for fans and the team itself, and a bad day, but a lot that can be made of a day like this that I think San Francisco 49er fans should be fairly happy with. And let's kick things off with, I can already see 2 comments in the chat. One from Lori Matthews and one from Garrett Dale. And Garrett Dale going full parental advisory on us in the YouTube chat. But 49ers Throwback says, like and subscribe, faithful. Please do so. And let's dive into San Francisco's 53-man roster. And normally, we would start at the quarterback. However, because of the YouTube comments, how about we start at kicker? Because San Francisco has indeed retained, as expected at this point, Jake Moody as their kicker for this season. Lori Matthews says here, Moody is still a Niner. I know, what a terrible day for Niner fans. And Garrett Dale says, yup, Jake effing, I'm going to blow the game. Moody is still a Niner. Yes, he is. And Bobo says here, Moody getting a record extension already. That to me, while yes, we expect Jake Moody to make the roster, was a move I was hoping San Francisco may surprise us with. It didn't happen. However, while that was unsurprising for Moody to make the 53-man roster, there are 2 kickers that may be enticing for fans, or at least maybe enticing for the San Francisco 49ers in case Jake Moody does struggle. Matthew Wright, who filled in for Jake Moody last year, I believe, against the Seattle Seahawks when they were in Seattle and beat them last season, he got cut today. So less leg strength, but more accuracy inside the 40. I don't mind that at all. Then Dustin Hopkins, I believe the Cleveland Browns kicker got cut today, has had a long and lengthy career. So two options are on the open market for San Francisco to maybe dabble in if they don't love Jake Moody. Greg Joseph is still a free agent. Eddie Piñeiro's out there as well. So plenty of viable filling candidates if Jake Moody does indeed struggle this year, which I don't think would surprise any of us if he does, because it is Jake Moody of all people. They also did cut Thomas Morstead, their punter, and I know when we all saw that, we all said, the punter? Really? But when you cut the punter, it's a pretty clear indication that somebody else is either going to get cut tomorrow, that being on Wednesday, or somebody else will go on injured reserve, making way for your punter to resign. In fact, Morstead himself said, relax on social media. So I know we see right now they don't have a punter. They are going to re-sign Thomas Morstead tomorrow, and they already have long snapper John Weeks. With the Jake Moody stuff out of the way and special teams now done, I do want to revert back to our normal order of things, that being the quarterback position, which, again, it seems pretty self-explanatory. You have Brock Purdy. Mac Jones is seemingly healthy for week 1. San Francisco does need to find an emergency third quarterback. They waive/injured, that's what they call it in the NFL, Tanner Mordecai and Carter Bradley. My assumption is Tanner Mordecai makes a return. I don't know if that's the case, but they are going to have to sign a quarterback on the practice squad. I am really pushing for Kyle McCord to be that man. However, it feels like that San Francisco is going to go out for a lower tier, kind of bargain bin hunting third string quarterback. So expect somebody like Carter Bradley or Tanner Mordecai to return tomorrow via the practice squad. Nothing shocking there. I think Curtis Rourke, this year's 7th round draft pick, goes on the NFI list to begin the season. That is exactly what we said was going to happen the last couple predictions, but no surprise there. And then running back, similar thing, not much of a big surprise there. Christian McCaffrey, Isaac Guerendo, Jordan James, and Brian Robinson are your 4 running backs this year. We did see a push from part of the fan base to almost exile Isaac Guerendo off the roster. While yes, his stock is very low currently, and maybe he becomes a kick returner, which may go into the reason why Dallas Flowers was cut. We'll get into that later in the show. But Isaac Guerendo is no longer the RB2. He is probably going to be a gunner/kick return man for special teams. So those are your 4 running backs. Jordan James, I believe, is supposed to be back by next week. And they get to stash players like Patrick Taylor Jr. and Corey Kiner on injured reserve. They did release Jeff Wilson Jr. I think the media-wide assumption is he will be a primary practice squad candidate for them. They want to bring him back, look really good in preseason. However, what I'm going to try to do in almost every single positional group is list 1 or 2 players, and I see Leon Sandcastle already doing it here in the YouTube chat, that maybe San Francisco tries to pluck away from a different team that got cut and sign them to their practice squad. And while Jeff Wilson Jr. fits the offense, looks every bit of the part of an RB4, RB5 this year for San Francisco as a depth piece, I do believe the Seattle Seahawks just cut Damian Martinez, running back out of Miami. I loved Damian Martinez coming out of camp. And I know whenever you hear your rival cutting a player, you have to always ask, why is said player getting cut? And this will come into factor more so with the wide receiver market than running back market, because Shanahan can seemingly make, magic out of dog crap when it comes to running back. So I like the fact that Damian Martinez is out there. I would not mind bringing him in over a Jeff Wilson Jr., younger guy, or bringing them both in. I always love having younger backs on the practice squad. Fill your room with young guys. You already have Jordan James. You have Guerendo, who may not be there next year, but it's almost like further insulation to a room that has had a lot of injury history and currently already does. So Damian Martinez is out there. Cody Schrader, who was a kind of a, how can I put this, one of Kyle Shanahan's favorite players in last year's draft class, being a UDFA. The Rams cut him. He's out there. Then, of course, Frank Gore Jr. is also a available waiver claim candidate. So there are 3 running backs I believe San Francisco could take a chance on, but in that order, Martinez, Schrader, and Gore. I don't think Frank Gore will make it to, or Frank Gore Jr., I should say, will make it to San Francisco, but watch out for Damian Martinez. That dude can play. He fits the offense pretty well. Low center of gravity. Again, I like the room a lot, but just watch out for a player like Damian Martinez. Outside of that, though, nothing too different. Obviously, Kyle Juszczyk makes the team, which brings us to the wide receiver position, which, like the entire offseason, the entire preseason, and even now, after cutdown day, might be the one positional group that we really don't have answers to, despite today kind of getting a clearer picture as to where the room stands. Now, when you hear that Jauan, Jennings, Ricky Pearsall, Jordan Watkins, Sky Moore, and Jacob Cowling all make the roster, San Francisco only carries 5 receivers initially. That's not too shocking. What is shocking is the fact is only 2 of those guys are healthy, and that is Ricky Pearsall and Sky Moore. So 3 of the 5 receivers that are on the active roster as we speak are injured. Jauan Jennings being the one that may have a little more to it than not. But the receiver room is very thin, and San Francisco is banking on guys like Isaiah Hodgins, like Junior Burgeon, like Robbie Chosen-Anderson, like Tariq Owens, and Russell Gage, who were all cut/waived today and yesterday to come back, whether it be 1 or 2 of those guys. I believe that tomorrow they are going to place Jacob Cowling on injured reserve. The reason why that did not happen today was because they want to save Cowling, and I love what they did by doing this. They did not put Cowling on IR today because they may not actually need him to return, and if you put him on IR today, you have to designate him as a player you are going to expect back at a certain point in time. Waiting to tomorrow after cutdown day has passed, you can put him on IR then, and he becomes a hopeful return, but not necessarily a must return for you. So it almost saves San Francisco a return designation, which was one of the biggest things I was pointing out of, like, I don't really want Cowling to be one of the 8 they have that must return for them. So I like that move. Maybe only cost you a punter, which he'll be back tomorrow. However, you have Sky Moore, you have Pearsall. Is Jordan Watkins going to be back by week 1? You certainly hope so, but you just don't know. And Jauan Jennings' situation has to be coming to a head soon, whether that be being released, whether that be being put on IR himself, being held out, being suspended, being traded. It just feels like that a decision is going to have to be made soon with Jauan Jennings. That still only leaves 2 healthy wide receivers on your roster. Brandon Aiyuk on the PUP list. He's done for the first 4 weeks of the season. And DeMarcus Robinson lost his appeal and is going to miss the first 3 games with a suspension. I believe they were going to try to bring back Chosen-Anderson and Russell Gage. Maybe there's Tariq Owens. Maybe one of those guys is brought back on the active roster. But unless San Francisco has a big move via trade or outright signing a guy to the active roster, it does feel as if they are going to try to piece it together with Pearsall and Sky Moore, and then hope Watkins is healthy or hope Jauan Jennings is healthy, and then fill out the 4 through 5 spots with the practice squad elevations weeks 1 through 3. That said, I don't love that. I don't love that idea, but I understand what they're doing. Cheap options, Nobody's tied to the roster itself because you're going to have Robinson back, and once he comes back, he's your automatic number 2 next to Pearsall. And if Jennings isn't actually hurt, then he's back in the fray, and it makes the need lesser so at wide receiver. I did, though, scour the waiver wire market today as cuts were going through and listed a handful of wide receivers I think San Francisco could indeed take a chance on to fill out their room, whether it be via the practice squad or be on the active roster outright. I see somebody in here, the 49ers 2025, saying, "What's up, Sterling? What's up back at you? Hope you're having a great Tuesday roster cut down day." He says, Tay Martin, who has been in San Francisco for a handful of years, otherwise known as Big Play Tay, despite not making any big plays for the Niners, he was cut by the Washington Commanders today. They ask, is he a realistic option? Because he knows the offense. Sure, I don't think he offers you as much as, let's say, Robbie Chosen-Anderson or Isaiah Hodgins or Russell Gage. I think those guys would be higher on the pecking order for returns if you're San Francisco. And a great question here. Lori Matthews asks, where does San Francisco sit on the waiver wire? They are number 11. It is ordered how the draft order was this past year. So San Francisco sitting at number 11, have to wait for 10 teams to pass them by for a player they want to claim. But the wide receivers I believe San Francisco could indeed target, and these are in no particular order. They just watched Marquez Valdes-Scantling be cut by the Seattle Seahawks. Now, MVS certainly has his pitfalls. The hands are inconsistent, but he knows the offense. He could be a deep ball threat. And if you are not going to have Jordan Watkins out there for week 1, maybe MVS becomes a player for you. Now money becomes involved, and it may lean San Francisco towards Robbie Chosen-Anderson over MVS, but he's certainly an option. The other one is Hunter Renfrow, cut by the Panthers. He's making his comeback this year. In his prime, I always wondered what Hunter Renfrow could be for the 49ers. In 2018, 2017, when Jimmy Garoppolo and Trent Taylor were tearing things up, it was like, oh, we have Wes Welker. Obviously, that was way off. But you saw the makings of Shanahan, this kind of, Jimmy Garoppolo Patriot guy, small, white slot receiver, and Renfrow was great back then, but a little slower now. His body is healthier. Maybe that is a option for San Francisco. Not my first pick, but one I'd watch out for. I don't think he'll come to San Francisco, yet is a guy that I think they could entertain as a waiver claim, especially if guys like Chosen-Anderson, Hodgins, and Gage maybe get starting jobs elsewhere. That's always in the, that could be in the plan, right? You can believe you'll retain somebody, and that could be kind of agreed upon behind closed doors, but let's say a team like the Saints, or a team like the Falcons, or a team like the Bengals, somebody else, who knows, says, we love Russell Gage. We love Robbie Chosen-Anderson. Come on down. They give him more money, better opportunity. Sometimes you get burned, and San Francisco has put themselves in a little bit of a pickle where they could get burned if, let's say, an opposing team likes some of the receivers they're hoping to bring back. Continuing on the waiver claim or the veteran receiver market, I have Robert Woods, played with the Rams for a long time, with the Texans. He can run block, he can play in the slot, he can play outside. He's older, he's a veteran, but I was surprised San Francisco did not make a run for him in free agency, which, knowing who they brought in, it all seemed to work itself out pretty fine. But I think Robert Woods could be someone that Kyle Shanahan sees out there and says, if our initial plan falls through, Robert Woods could be a player I believe San Francisco could target. He's not going to want a lot of money. He's not going to want the ball very often. He's a team player, older guy now. I think he's like 33 years old. He should fit in to the offense fairly well. I saw a comment earlier up here that says, please don't say Malachi Corley. That is a hard no for me. That is via Strawberry Reacts in the YouTube chat. I do have Malachi Corley on my list, not because I want San Francisco to bring him in, only because I've seen others mention his name. And I'll tell you this, I know when he was coming out of college, and I'm guilty of this too, you saw the end arounds, the body build, Deebo Samuel 2.0, what could he be in a Shanahan offense, all this and that. That is not how Malachi Corley has operated in the NFL. There have been a lot of character issues with him on the field, not off the field as much, but on the field it's definitely been a problem. In fact, I know for a fact he outright refused to be on special teams as a rookie. That has been reported by people out there in New York. They have said that there has been some attitude problems with him, with the Jets. Now, the Jets were a disaster last year, so maybe that was why, but
eczema isn't always obvious, but it's real. And so is the relief from Ebglyss. After an initial dosing phase, about 4 in 10 people taking Ebglyss achieved itch relief and clear or almost clear skin at 16 weeks. And most of those people maintain skin that's still more clear at 1 year with monthly dosing.
Ebglyss, lebrikizumab LBKZ, a 250 milligram per 2 milliliter injection, is a prescription medicine used to treat adults and children 12 years of age and older who weigh at least 88 pounds or 40 kilograms with moderate to severe eczema, also called atopic dermatitis, that is not well controlled with prescription therapies used on the skin or topicals, or who cannot use topical therapies. Ebglyss can be used with or without topical corticosteroids. Don't use if you're allergic to Ebglyss. Allergic reactions can occur that can be severe. Eye problems can occur. Tell your doctor if you have new or worsening eye problems. You should not receive a live vaccine when treated with Ebglyss. Before starting Ebglyss, tell your doctor if you have a parasitic infection.
Searching for real relief? Ask your doctor about Ebglyss and visit ebglyss.lilly.com or call 1-800-LILY-RX or 1-800-545-5979.
San Francisco has the Jets' former head coach and their special teams coordinators, that being Brant Boyer and Robert Saleh. Why would they, if they were indeed on the staff when he was maybe refusing to do things, why would they want him on the roster? I don't think it's a viable option. I don't think he would fit. Like, he fit the offense from a logistical standpoint, but he just got Sky Moore. They are in some way hoping Cowan comes back. I don't think going and getting Corley, who's probably going to want some money, granted got cut off his rookie deal. Maybe I'm wrong there, but it just doesn't seem like a fit where he is an actual team player. Again, maybe it was the New York Jets effect and the New York media effect, and it just wasn't a good fit there. There are texts of Saleh sending Corley back and forth before the draft of hey, I'm picking you no matter what. So there was some infatuation there, but it certainly felt more like, how can I recreate Deebo Samuel compared to, wow, I like you so much as a wide receiver, I want to bring you back wherever I go, whether it be the Jets or now San Francisco. So with San Francisco trading away Deebo Samuel, Saleh and Brant Boyer now on San Francisco's staff, I'd rather move away from that archetype. It works in spurts, but you have Guerendo, you have Brian Robinson, you have Christian McCaffrey. You do have a lot of archetypes in the backfield where you don't really need Malachi Corley on the offense. You also just acquired Sky Moore, which shouldn't negate you from making a move or kind of remove you from making another move, but Sky Moore can be the gadget guy for you and do things like that. So I am a hard no on Corley. Let somebody else take a chance. In saying that, it'll probably be Kansas City. He'll probably score a very big touchdown in the playoffs for them, and we'll all say, well, that could have been us. But I'm a hard no on Corley. However, two guys that I do think San Francisco really should take a chance on. One of them being Trey Palmer, who just got cut by the Buccaneers. He is awesome. I don't know why they cut him. It certainly feels like they have Evans and Godwin and Mbuka. I just don't know where he didn't fit in. In the meantime, Trey Palmer's awesome. If you want to have a younger receiver that's kind of a bigger guy that can play the outside, I'd bring him in. I think on a 1-2 year deal, I would like him over players like Russell Gage, Robbie Chosen-Anderson. I do think Trey Palmer will have a big market for him, which may complicate things. But if you can be in that market, I would snatch him up as soon as I possibly can. He is awesome. He's rather proven in his first couple years in the NFL, and I think would be just a tremendous fit with San Francisco in the receiver room. And at least in the meantime, not having DeMarcus Robinson really sucks for this offense. Trey Palmer can fill that role for you, and once he comes back, he'll figure things out. But for a team that usually only plays 3 wide receivers and only having 2 healthy right now, Trey Palmer may be your best fit on the open market as we speak. The last one, though, I think may be a little bit of a boomer bust, may have an eye roll to it. That is KJ Osborne. He'll probably be a cheaper option, or the cheapest of the bunch, maybe outside of Corley, if he doesn't want a lot of money. Osborne played Minnesota for a long time, knows the offense really well with Kevin O'Connell. You bring him into San Francisco, he probably wouldn't be someone you have to keep around the entire year. He can be somebody that is here for 3 weeks and gets cut. He's definitely a legitimate Band-Aid to your problem. Maybe he'd be kind of in the same vein as a Russell Gage or a Chosen Anderson. Not going to be somebody you're tied to for a long time. Not going to be somebody that is causing problems of, well, now that Aiyuk and Jennings and Robinson are back, where do I fit? It's not going to be that way. The hands are a bit inconsistent, which may cause some problems for Kyle Shanahan, but he played Ronnie Bell for 2 years, so maybe I'm wrong, and he doesn't mind that. So I do think that KJ Osborne could be a name to watch if San Francisco wants to add another wide receiver to the roster, as it seems like they are going to place Jacob Cowling on injured reserve. Getting back to the YouTube comments for 1 second, I see all your questions about Sebastian Valdes. I promise when we get to the defensive line, we will discuss Sebastian Valdes. Leon Sandcastle says Xavier Restrepo, the rookie out of Miami, was with Tennessee, Cam Ward's former teammate at the U. He was cut today. I wasn't a big fan of his coming out of college. Really slow. I just don't think they would want him in San Francisco. Maybe you can say, he's a slot receiver. In that case, I can see Kyle liking that, but I don't think he wants to log jam that position. And really, Estrepo just doesn't have the upside, I think, even players like Gage and Chosen Anderson could or currently have. I think that Estrepo would be a project where I think San Francisco, at least as of now, with the receiver crop they have, doesn't want to add projects. They want to add guys that can be elevated on or by week 1. Let's see what else we have in the YouTube chat. Let's see. Bobo says Jacoby Myers. I was annoyed because I had my fantasy football draft a couple nights ago. I got Jamar Chase, I got DJ Moore, and I was like, I need a receiver 3. I got my running backs were set, I got my tight end, and I went Jacoby Myers. Well, Geno Smith, he's kind of the receiver 1 out there next to Brock Bowers. This would be a great fit. The next day he asked for a trade, and I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. And now there are talks of him going to the Patriots, and I'm like, oh my God. But to your question, to your comment, Bobo, San Francisco was one of the teams that was trying to sign Amari Cooper, and they're one of the teams that checked in on Jacoby Myers last season. So there has been some interest in not just signing a wide receiver, but also in Myers himself. However, I think one of the things holding them back is they don't really want to pay Jauan Jennings. They're not going to want to pay Jacoby Myers, who in my opinion is a better receiver than Jauan Jennings, but money to me is the biggest problem there. So I like where your head's at. Definitely a big upgrade, but I don't think San Francisco is in the camp of pouring more money into the wide receiver room. If they wanted to, they already paid Jauan Jennings. Kenny says here, I'd rather add Ozzy Osbourne. R.I.P. to the Prince of Darkness himself, Ozzy Osbourne. He was incredible. I was looking at Ozzy Osbourne videos after he passed away. There's a video of him. I don't know which Super Bowl it was, but they're doing the intros. And it's the Patriots against somebody, which seems to be every single game in the mid-2000s and whatnot. But we used to have live intros during the Super Bowl. What happened to that? Why did we stop Metal and Rock legends from playing out both teams in the Super Bowl? I get it, Rock and Metal has kind of fallen off in recent years, albeit I'm a big fan of what's currently out there. However, imagine Metallica, who's really famous still, albeit not my favorite, playing out the Niners in Kansas City or Kansas City and Philadelphia. The energy that's pumped through the crowd as a live band plays when teams run out onto the field on the Super Bowl. Give me that every year. I don't care who it is. It can be Dua Lipa or Beyonce, or give me something of energy. It can be Meek Mill. It doesn't matter. Give me a live performance. Pay the halftime people, but give me a legitimate band playing out these people and these teams. It was incredible. The vibes were awesome. And it is one more example as to why things are not as good as they used to be for a variety of reasons. Lori Matthews asks, any chance they get Frank Gore Jr.? Yes, they're going to get Frank Gore Jr., Tariq Owens, and Brendan Rice all in the same practice squad. No, but seriously, I do think Frank Gore is probably better served, Frank Gore Jr., I'll say, is better served elsewhere. Buffalo, Carolina, New Orleans. I love Frank Gore Jr. He's just really tiny, which doesn't mean he can't be good. I just think that San Francisco, they have their 3 or 4 guys now, and I think there are other running backs that better fit the system. Leon Sandcastle says, let's get too short. The minute he pauses after saying, what's my favorite word during San Francisco's intro, they'll have to bleep the whole thing. But that would be awesome. I would love to see that. Get some Bay Legends in a Giddy 40 up there. Get too short. Heck, he isn't, I don't even think he's from the Bay, but bring Future back and give a throwback to those 2000, 2010 teams with Bowman and Willis, man. It would be awesome. Bring back live introduction performances. I know this is off topic, but it was awesome. It's insane. Kenny 49er says, E40 was at the preseason week 3 game against the Chargers. I saw that. As somebody that worked with the Warriors, E40 was always there. Always there. Leon Sandcastle says, Journey and Metallica. It doesn't even have to be Bay Area people. You can get Papa Roach. They're from Vallejo. You can get Green Day. They're from Berkeley. They're legitimate, legendary bands you can get to play out the San Francisco 49ers for a playoff game. The vibes would be immaculate. Anyways, those are the group of wide receivers I think San Francisco could target. And I want to move on to tight ends. They only kept 3, which the number didn't shock me, but they cut Braden Willis, which that in itself isn't a surprise. It was kind of a toss-up. I leaned towards Willis making the roster because he does have more special teams versatility than Jake Tunges. San Francisco obviously disagrees, and they kept Kittle, Luke Farrell, and Jake Tunges, which Tunges gives you so much more as a wide receiver, so not really a shock, but it did kind of catch me by surprise, I guess, albeit very, very minimally, which brings us to the offensive line. Because can we just give a round of applause, whether you're in your home or in your car, on the toilet, it doesn't matter. Give a round of applause for San Francisco keeping Drew Moss and cutting Nick Zakelj. We did it. We finally did it. They're learning to keep higher ceilinged younger players over freaking bums like Nick Zakelj. They finally listened. I was shocked. I didn't think they were going to do it, and they did. We've been on Twitter, on the show, clamoring for Drew Moss to make this roster. In San Francisco, whether it was John Lynch or President Al Guido or Jed York or Kyle Shanahan, they listen, whether it's to the show or to nobody else, that's not including myself. They retained Drew Moss on the offensive line. So happy for him. They also kept Matt Hennessy as their backup center, which you can certainly upgrade there, but I love the group they kept. Obviously, there was a lot of room for improvement with the depth, excuse me. You have Trent, you have Ben Barch, you have Jake Brendel, you have Dominic Pooney, you have Colton McKivitz. They kept Spencer Burford. They retained Connor Colby, Matt Hennessy, Drew Moss, and right tackle Austin Pleasance. They kept 10 offensive linemen and 11 defensive linemen, 21 players in the trenches for San Francisco. That is a lot of bodies to take up your roster, taking up essentially two big positional groups. But I'm happy for San Francisco. Keep higher ceiling younger guys. It makes the most sense. We have been pleading with them to, like, they're in a spot that they can take a risk on guys and hope things work out, especially when you're cutting guys like Drake Nugent and Nick Zakelj. Nick Zakelj will probably find his way back on the roster at some point this year, whether it be via the practice squad or someone else gets injured. He'll be signed back. That said, I do think San Francisco did two smart things. One, this wasn't their own doing, but it happened, so it's a good thing. Isaac Alarson, a backup tackle, is going to be suspended and then probably revert back to the practice squad. However, I do think San Francisco does have some questions behind Colton McKivitz at right tackle. You kind of don't really love Austin Pleasance. He's been wildly inconsistent. He was pretty good against the Broncos in that first preseason game. I know he's been on the roster for now like 1.5 years. He was signed last season. There's comfortability with him. However, you can improve. The same mentality they took in keeping Drew Moss over Nick Zakelj, and in return, really keeping Matt Hennessy and Drew Moss over Nick Zakelj. So kind of upping the need for an extra offensive lineman in that group because Nick Zakelj would be your backup guard and center. So they had to house two guys over one. I want San Francisco to almost keep that same momentum and look to improve the backup right tackle spot with a young player. There's two guys out there. They were already mentioned by Leon Sandcastle in the YouTube chat. Logan Brown, I believe he was a teammate, or if he wasn't a teammate, he played at the same college as Dominic Pooney, Kansas. He was cut. He's a tackle, fits the offense extremely well, but also my pick. Esa Pohl today was cut by the Kansas City Chiefs. I don't know why they did that, but when other teams make mistakes, you have to capitalize. It's the same thing as in-game. Get a takeaway, get a turnover. In the red zone, you have to score when you have an opportunity. The same thing comes when roster construction happens. You have to score when you have the opportunity. And when the Chiefs cut Esa Pohl, my eyes lit up. He fits the offense perfectly. I believe he was trained or in some capacity involved in the training with John Feliciano. He can play tackle, slide right in behind Colton McKivitz. When Colton McKivitz is a free agent after this season, maybe he's your replacement. And if he isn't, guess what? Take a chance. There is no reason to not be one of the teams putting in a claim for Esa Pohl. He is awesome. He's tremendous. I get he was a UDFA. He shouldn't have been. And that Chiefs fan base is livid right now as to why they let him go. If the Chiefs make a mistake and the fan base isn't happy, San Francisco needs to be in that group putting in a claim. He was awesome at Washington State, and on a team that seemingly has two strong backup guards now, albeit young, in Connor Colby and Drew Moss. Why not find another young right tackle and put him in behind Colton McKivitz? Austin Pleasance can probably be brought back on the practice squad, so I think it's a no-brainer to make that move. I really believe that is the smart move to make. You've already done it once. Do it again. Do it again, please. Please, 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 San Francisco. Go out there and claim Logan Brown or my pick, Esa Pohl. You will thank me later. There is no reason not to get those things done. Let's get back into the YouTube chat. As Garrett Dale says, hashtag cut Moody. Kenny 49er says, Moody is a bum. Garrett Dale also says here in the YouTube chat, I hope to God they have a kicker on speed dial when Moody inevitably blows at the very least one game.
This episode is brought to you by State Farm. Life gets easier with great assists, and State Farm is here to dish one your way. Get in touch over the phone or on the app to get the teammate you need. State Farm with the assist. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. Coverage options are selected by the customer. Availability and eligibility vary by state.
I don't know what their plan is at kicker. Greg Joseph, I believe, worked out for the Dolphins today among 3 other kickers. So we already kind of went over the options they have. Matthew Wright, Dustin Hopkins. There is guys out there, but it does feel like that they are... it's going to take Moody costing this team some games to inevitably make them or force their hand to cut him. We have a question here by Kenny. He asks, Sterling, should we add Deontay Johnson? Kenny, I'm going to ban you from the chat. We don't ask questions like that. No. Keep Deontay Johnson's no blocking behind off this roster. There's a reason why he was a problem in Baltimore and Houston and Cleveland and Pittsburgh. Keep him away from this team. I gave you like 5 other guys, and you brought up Deontay Johnson. Don't do that. If I wanted Deontay Johnson, I would have said Deontay Johnson. Don't bring him up. Please, no. Bobo, going back to the Ozzy Osbourne conversation from earlier, says, I saw Ozfest for free in Hawaii at an outdoor concert. I knew Trail. Man, I never got to see Ozzy Osbourne live in concert, but I'll tell you what. Growing up in the early 2000s, that like 2007 album, like with a I Don't Want to Stop, and the next one they had like Let Me Hear You Scream, and I'm forgetting the name now, but like when he had Zakk Wylde playing guitar for him, man, like obviously I know Paranoid and all that stuff, like all the Black Sabbath Ozzy stuff, but man, incredible stuff. In regards to Jake Moody though, they already cut the punter, just cut the kicker too. Go for 2 every single time. What do you have to lose? Nothing to lose at all. Nothing to lose. Just go for 2 every single time. You have McCaffrey. You have hopefully Jennings. You have Pearsall. You have Kittle. The odds you make a lot of 2-point conversions are pretty high. I am all for adopting the Dan Campbell version of football for just 1 year to avoid watching Jake Moody go out there and play for this team. Garrett Dale asks a pretty good question here. What happened to Corey Kiner? Corey Kiner is on injured reserve. He reverted back to San Francisco. He is stashed for the entire year. He will likely be brought back next year in the depth chart. So a very good thing for him, and San Francisco gets to learn a year in the offense, but also gets to come back next year for the red and gold. Before we get to the defense, though, which once again has a lot of things on it that I was very surprised San Francisco did, mainly at linebacker. And one unfortunate thing that happened on the defensive line, I want to remind all of you out there listening on the audio podcast or watching live on YouTube to use this promo code right here, 49ers Access, 49 ERS, ACCESS at SeatGeek.com, and save yourself $20 off your first purchase. It is the #1 ticketing app in the country. It is my favorite ticketing app to use to get tickets for baseball games, NFL games, and concert tickets. Go to SeatGeek.com. Albeit you can't see Ozzy Osbourne play anymore because he passed away, unfortunately. You can see Jake Moody play, which Lori Matthews has a perfect comment here saying, Crazy Train should be Jake Moody's walkout song. So maybe you get a 2-for-1 special. You pay to go see Jake Moody play, which, why would you do that? But maybe you get to hear some Ozzy Osbourne in the background when he shanks his next kick. And you can do so while also saving yourself $20 off your first purchase by using promo code 49ers Access, 49 ERS ACCESS at SeatGeek.com. Tommy Huxley's here in the YouTube chat saying, what's up, fairies? What's up? Right back at you, Tommy. And let's move on to the defense. San Francisco kept 11 defensive lineman and did not retain Sebastian Valdes. What are they thinking? Why would they do that? But I tried to tell you they were going to keep Robert Beal Jr. You didn't want to hear it. You didn't like it. I didn't even like it really, but was not shocked that San Francisco kept Robert Beal Jr. You got to think. New regime, new defensive coordinator. Saleh's back. I know that can sometimes mean guys are going to get cut, and San Francisco kind of already did that. But Robert Saleh hoarded defensive linemen with the Jets. No different this year. 11 defensive linemen. Nick Bosa, Alfred Collins, Micah Williams, Bryce Huff, CJ West, Evan Anderson, Sam Okawanu, Jordan Elliott, Kalia Davis, Robert Beal Jr., and the icing on top of the cake is Yetur Gross-Matos passed his physical and was activated from the PUP list today. I do think that right there was the reason San Francisco did not retain Sebastian Valdes. They're going to hope and pray that he can get through waivers. I'm torn because part of me thinks it'll happen. Part of me thinks that, yes, Sebastian Valdes will find his way through waivers. However, it's 32 other teams, and sometimes you claim a guy and you don't get the next guy you want. So it all depends on who wants him, who needs him, what team has the need for a defensive tackle. But I do believe the Yetur Gross-Matos activation was the reason that Valdes did not pick or get picked for the roster spot. But I really want him back. I think that with Kevin Givens being placed on injured reserve, they're really thin, not bodies-wise, but like legitimate play style-wise. That Valdes may be needed at some point. Obviously, you're hoping that Collins can become the big space eater and whatnot. But there's been some up and downs there. Kalia Davis has been often injured. And then Jordan Elliott, although had a really good preseason debut against the Chargers, there's still some questions as to what his role will be. So I do think, would I have rather have cut Beal Jr. and kept Valdes? Probably, but as we pointed out in the last show, and as Leon Sandcastle points out here, Beal Jr. has actually developed into a pretty good run defender, sets a pretty good edge, and is a very good special teamer. We talked about it a lot in the day after the preseason finale against the Chargers, that Beal Jr. was one of the standout run defenders on the edge. So we are in lockstep, Leon Sandcastle. You're kind of hoping and praying that Valdes comes back, but I'll tell you this now. If San Francisco can almost swap Esapol and Sebastian Valdes, it wouldn't be too mad. Obviously, you want both those guys on your roster, but do I think it was a mistake? Not necessarily. I'm not shocked it happened. Honestly, I told you it was probably going to happen this way. I just think that Valdes, for as good as he was and how much praise he got from Kyle and Dominic Pooney, it just felt as if they were going a different direction. I think they want him back. At least that's the hope. But I think he'll get picked up. But you never know sometimes. Like, some guys you don't expect to get picked up. Like, Jalen Graham got claimed last year. Why did that happen? And then found his way back on San Francisco. Carolina last year claimed Jarrett Kingston. He got cut this year. So I know we get up in arms about these fringe roster guys that are like, roster spot 51 to 53. The odds are those guys probably aren't going to make an impact too much. And in some cases, those guys do revert back to San Francisco via Jalen Graham, who, although was cut today, was on the roster last year after being cut. So a lot can happen. And going further into that, Ambry Thomas got cut today. Like, a lot of guys got cut that were, former things. So, or former rostered spots for San Francisco. So again, I wouldn't get too caught up in arms. It does stink that Valdes is no longer on the roster, but that doesn't mean that because you cut somebody else wants somebody, right? Like San Francisco could value Valdes, but it doesn't mean that 31 other teams would value him as equally. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. Obviously, you have to look out for those really bad teams that want players like Valdes, but without kind of going down the order in front of me, I don't really think it's that big of a deal. And you have to think this too. Other teams are cutting their rosters down from 90 to 53. They have their own guys they want to retain. They have their own maneuvering that must be done after cutdown day. So sometimes guys like Valdes fall through waivers simply because other teams have to go through their own stuff before they can go claim other guys. So we'll have our eyes peeled for that. It sucks if we lose him, but I don't think it is the end of the world to lose Sebastian Valdes. Not shocked, not surprised, somewhat disappointed. Maybe would have rather cut somebody else, which we'll get to in a second. But San Francisco, I think, did cut a lot of players I assumed would make the roster and chose to keep, again, 11 defensive linemen and 10 offensive linemen. That was a shocker. And let me ask you this. Would you rather have Drew Moss or Sebastian Valdes? Because that's really what it could have come down to. So that's kind of up to you to decide, but that could have been one of the conversations they were having. And in their case, I think offensive line's a heck of a lot weaker, so putting it in that kind of perspective may kind of lean towards agreeing with San Francisco's decision, albeit, again, you want to keep young players like Sebastian Valdes. I do think they are going to try to bring him back, and Travis Gibson on the practice squad, so two guys there to watch out for. And also, Clelin Ferrell did get cut today, so maybe we find Clelin Ferrell being brought back, albeit I don't think that's going to happen, but a name to look out for as the waiver claims and the regular season comes around in just under or just over 1 week's time. Linebacker, though, they surprisingly cut 4 linebackers and only retained 5. I do think they are treating linebacker similar to wide receiver of like, hey, if our guys are healthy, we like our top 5. If they're not healthy, we're going to find some practice squad dudes. Chasserot got cut. Stone Blanton got cut. The UDFA stand-up from, I think, like Montana State or whatever it was. Jalen Graham got cut. No surprise there. And then Curtis Robinson got cut, which I had gone back and forth on him. He wasn't on my preseason 1 and 2 weeks predictions to make the roster, but got the pick 6, had a great game against the Chargers. Thought that may have been a difference maker. However, they kept Fred Warner, D. Winters, Nick Martin, Luke Gifford, and Tatum Bethune. My assumption, what I've heard, is they want to retain Curtis Robinson and Stone Blanton on the practice squad. So those are 2 guys there I think make their way back to San Francisco. Robinson, I think, this is his 4th year playing, so I don't think he is a waiver on waivers. Maybe I'm wrong there, but I believe Robinson will find his way back to San Francisco. They like him a lot. I just don't think what the roster is and where it was. They had the ability to keep 6 linebackers, which may change once the season starts. Steve Winters has had a long list of injuries, and there is some improving pieces like Bethune and Martin in that room. So Robinson could be a practice squad guy that starts at some point during the year, so I think he'll be back. However, the biggest shocker to me of the defense was at cornerback. They kept They kept Lenore. I'm burying the lead there. Wow. They kept Lenore, Renardo Green, Upton Stout, Chase Lucas. Great for him. Awesome to see Chase Lucas make the roster. They also kept Saran Neal. Love to see that. Was a big fan of his during the preseason. But they cut Dallas Flowers, who I think was almost everybody's assumption to make the roster as the 3rd outside cornerback. I do think Flowers could be someone they view as maybe a potential practice squad candidate. However, they also kept Darrell Luter Jr., which maybe Chase Lucas playing outside cornerback against the Chargers gave them some comfortability to cut Dallas Flowers and not be too scared to lose him. Also, keep in mind that Darrell Luter Jr. has 2 years of roster control left. Flowers only has 1. I know sometimes when you try to predict things, you pick the best player. Money comes into play a lot, which is unfortunate. Sometimes it gets in the way of retaining good guys, but Flowers wasn't blowing us away, but he was the cornerback 3 throughout almost the entirety of training camp. Then all of a sudden, he getting cut. So maybe San Francisco has something in store there to make a move, but I like the room. I do think they are in a good spot with nickelback, with Lenoir can play that spot, Stout can play that spot, and Lucas can play that spot. But as soon as you start getting into the outside cornerback conversation, things get really thin, really fast. You like Lenoir, you like Green, but you don't really know what you have in Chase Lucas out there. After a good preseason, nickelback seems to be a much more comfortable spot for him. You like Saran Neal, but that is a spot where he was on playing against third stringers. Can he be depth for you? Maybe Saleh likes Darrell Luter Jr. enough. However, I do think maybe there is some potential for San Francisco to go out there on the waiver wire. Maybe they can bring back Samuel Womack, who was cut from the Colts. Maybe he can get brought back. He had a really good year a couple years ago with them. Maybe he can be brought back in some way. I also think
Make your next vacation unforgettable on Royal Caribbean's newest ship, Star of the Seas. It's everything you've loved about every family vacation you've ever been on, with mind-blowing thrills at the largest water park at sea, 7 onboard pools for every level of chill, more than 40 ways to dine and drink, and even more to enjoy at our award-winning private island, Perfect Day at Coco Cay. This is the new Star of the Seas. Click or tap the banner to find out more.
We saw San Francisco bring in Dallas Flowers, former Colts cornerback. He was injured. Now Gus Bradley's in San Francisco as an assistant. He clearly was a big reason as to why Flowers came to the Niners. Why not go out and bring in Juju Brents, the Colts' former second-round draft pick in 2023, under Gus Bradley as the DC there? There's a reason why he was a second-round pick out there in Indianapolis. The Colts, albeit don't draft very well, so maybe he's not a fit, but clearly there is some connection to Gus Bradley and defensive backs. Maybe San Francisco can bring in another former Colts cornerback, Womack being one of them, and also Juju Brents being another option out there. So those are kind of 3 guys, Flowers, Brents, and Womack, but also one of my favorites, if you were in tuned with my draft coverage, which why would you not be? Kobe Bryant got cut today by the Falcons, and Bryant had some personal things that were getting in the way of him getting highly drafted, but the skill set is definitely there. I do think he needs to get bigger and faster and stronger, but he's feisty. He fits what San Francisco wants to do defensively. I don't think he's worth a roster spot right now, but as a practice squad guy, I would love to get Kobe Bryant in the building, in the room. Him and Lenoir kind of built from that same feisty cloth of like, man, you get those 2 guys in the room, a lot of talking, a lot of chatter, physical cornerback play will be played. So I think that's also an option. Mello Dotson, also a name I see here in the YouTube chat from Kenny and Leon Sandcastle. So a lot of options out there. Former Colts, a lot of young guys can get brought in. I don't think San Francisco is done with their cornerback room. Receiver and cornerback, I think, are 2 rooms San Francisco is not done with just yet. Maybe a trade comes in, but I think those are 2 spots. Receiver and cornerback that San Francisco, you are going to see some maneuvering in the next few days. Whether it be some key practice squad guys being signed or an actual roster move on the 53-man roster happening, those are 2 positions that I think San Francisco will try to improve. Whether it be via trade or signing, we shall see. But I do think San Francisco is in a grouping that really needs to add some insulation, some much-needed depth to that room. I don't love Darrell Luter Jr. I don't love the idea of playing a lot of the receivers they have outside of Jauan, Jennings, and Pearsall. Even Sky Moore, not the biggest fan of his, albeit I'll give him a chance. I think cornerback and wide receiver are the two rooms they are going to try to improve in the next day or so. That brings us to the safety room. They kept pretty much everybody we assumed they'd keep. Jair Brown, Jason Pinnock, Richie Grant, and Marquez Siegel. Malik Mustafa joins Brandon Aiyuk on the PUP list to begin the year, so you're not going to see him at least till week 5. And then Jalen Mahoney and Derek Canteen were both cut. I am really hoping they bring back Jalen Mahoney. I love him so much, whether it's on the practice squad or on special teams. I think he fits what they want to do, their mindset. Got the big interception against the Raiders to help bring them back in that game, albeit it's preseason, so it doesn't actually count. But I like what Mahoney has to offer, and I think there's no harm in keeping him on the practice squad, giving him kind of a week-to-week status elevation, because I think he can bring something to your team that, say, in a year or so, you are going to have to replace Saran Neal and guys like that. So there is, I think, a benefit to having Mahoney on your practice squad. And Jacob Robinson got placed on season-ending injured reserve. So they get to retain two guys, Corey Kiner and Jacob Robinson. Young dudes, I think, can help this team in the future. Probably Kiner more than Robinson, but two young guys you want to invest in on the roster. But that is your 53-man roster for San Francisco. I'll go through the entire thing with you really fast here. Starting from special teams, Jake Moody and John Weeks. They are going to re-sign Thomas Morris to the punter tomorrow. And my assumption is place Jacob Cowling on injured reserve. Safety, Jair Brown, Jason Pinnock, Richie Grant, Marquez Siegel, and Malik Mustafa on the PUP list. Cornerback is Lenore, Renardo Green, Upton Stout, Chase Lucas, Saran Neal, Darrell Luter Jr., with Jacob Robinson and Trey Brown being on injured reserve. Linebacker is Fred Warner, D. Winters, Nick Martin, Luke Gifford, Tatum Bethune, with an early indication they want to bring back Stone Blanton and Curtis Robinson to the practice squad. 11 defensive linemen, Nick Bosa, Alfred Collins, Micah Williams, Bryce Huff, CJ West, Evan Anderson, Samuel Kawanu, Jordan Elliott, Yetur Gross-Matos, fresh off the PUP list, Kalia Davis, and Robert Beal Jr., Kevin Givens on injured reserve, and a hope and a prayer they can bring back Sebastian Valdez. On the offensive line, 10 guys make the roster: Trent Williams, Ben Barch, Jake Brendel, Dominic Pooney, Colt McKivitz, Spencer Burford, Connor Colby, Austin Pleasance, Matt Hennessy, and a gift from the gods, Drew Moss makes the roster, with Isaac Alarson on the suspended list. Tight end kept 3 of them: George Kittle, Luke Farrell, and Jake Tungis. Wide receiver, a very thin room. They kept 5: Jauan Jennings, Ricky Pearsall, Jordan Watkins, Sky Moore, and Jacob Cowling, who is going to be placed on injured reserve probably tomorrow or today if you're listening to the audio version of the podcast. A lot of questions there, though. DeMarcus Robinson lost the appeal. He is out for the first 3 games via suspension. And Brandon Aiyuk out for the first 4 games on the PUP list. They are hoping to bring back 1, maybe 2 of the following players: Russell Gage, Tariq Owens, Robbie Chosen-Anderson, Junior Burgeon, and Isaiah Hodgins. Gage, though, has the upper hand in the running to get his job back. Kyle Juszczyk is your fullback. Your running backs are Christian McCaffrey, Isaac Guerendo, Jordan James, Brian Robinson, with Corey Kiner and Patrick Taylor Jr. on season-ending injured reserve, and Jeff Wilson Jr. likely being brought back via the practice squad. And your quarterbacks are Brock Purdy and Mac Jones, with Curtis Rourke on the NFI list, and them trying to find somebody to be their 3rd emergency quarterback this season, with me believing Tanner Mordecai has the upper hand in the running. But a lot of moves were made today. Some will still be made tomorrow when San Francisco returns to an afternoon practice. 3 p.m., I believe, practice tomorrow to give themselves some time to kind of reorganize the locker room and help everyone kind of reset their brains as they now miss half of their unit. 90 guys dwindled down to 53 in one day, with more moves to come tomorrow. But until then, I want to thank every single one of you in the comments. Kenny, Tommy, Lori Matthews, Leon Sandcastle, Bobo, Garrett, Strawberry Reacts also in there, and many, many more of you. Love the conversations. Chad Wick Steiner says here on Facebook, Cowboys Jalen Cropper is a name to watch at wide receiver. I'll take your word for it. Maybe it works out for you. And so many more. The 49ers 2025. I'm not going to say your name, but I'll put it on screen for everybody to hear. Harry Balzic is how I'll word that. Then Eric Valeri on top of that with Fish and Chips and Niners Throwback also there as well. Thank every single one of you out there for watching and listening. Hope you guys can like, share, and subscribe to the show. You can also follow us on social media at 49ers_access is the X or Twitter, and 49ers.access is the Instagram, and use this promo code right here, 49ersaccess, 49 ERS ACCESS at SeatGeek.com to save yourself $20 off your first purchase. The roster has been dwindled, which means real football is just over a week away. Niners and Seahawks. Stay tuned for more content coming to you the remainder of the week, and then we preview Niners Seahawks week 1 next week. Cannot wait. Probably going to get to quarterback tier lists and some seasonal predictions, so stay tuned for that. And as always, like, share, and subscribe. And until next time, my name is Sterling Bennett, and as always, stay faithful.